This edition of the Mode Push podcast, Dan Jimenez, fresh off of his trip to Singapore, sits down with us here stateside to talk about how much it costs to go to a real GP race. Not just the flights and stuff. I'm talking about just getting in the race. Is it like an American stadium experience? What is that like? We're going to get it right from the horse's mouth. Although Dan's not a horse. He's a nice guy. So we're also going to have a preview of this race in Japan this weekend. Can Max wrap up the World Championship? What does it cost for the swag? Do you even want to buy swag at an F1 event? We're going to have all the tips for somebody who wants to go to a race. It's all right now on Mode Push.
Radio check. Loud and clear.
KSL Sports and KSL Podcast present Mode Push, an American view of F1, starting now.
I'm stuck. This is what you get with this honestly.
I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted.
I enjoyed this so much. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. It's another edition of Mode Push, the podcast by Americans for Americans in F1. Although we're not limited only to just Americans listening. I'm just saying we're Americans. And we're into F1 now. So there we are. Alex Kirry, Dan Jimenez, Dan in the flesh, which is good. It's good. You look good. You look like you're still recovering a little bit from the...
Yeah, I'm still feeling it for sure.
Okay, so I want to get into your experience at the Singapore GP, and I want to get into, we kind of described it a little bit of what you kind of went through on race day and in some of the sessions, but I know you have a ton of things you probably want to jump into. Don't want to lose sight of the fact, too, that there's an actual friggin' race this weekend, man.
Yeah.
And a big one, and you could have a new world champion at the end of this one, too. And, drum roll, it's going to be bad weather, apparently. The forecast is at least saying for, I think, qualifying session might be dry.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Chaos. It made for a fun qualifying last week.
I know. I want all of it. I want there to be... I don't want it to be normal. It's like everybody's like, oh, Max, isn't it going to be awesome? You're going to clinch the championship in that Honda power unit in front of the Honda folks, and they put the emblem back on the car again. I mean, why not? Honda owns the track, and so I was actually listening to something this week that I didn't know this either, but the guy who designed the Suzuka racetrack also designed Zandvoort, and so Max is like, there's all these connections, right? So he has all these things where. And I think, I don't know how similar they are, although he said there were similarities there. I'm not familiar enough with the track layouts, but for what we know about Suzuka, and we can get more into it in a little bit, but this is a track that the drivers love because it's like a total driver's track. They come out of the car and they're fired up because there's not a slow corner on the place.
No, it's crazy fast. There's just super iconic moments from F1 history in Suzuka with like some of the corners, like in the first sector, you got these windy S's that are really high G that kind of get progressively tighter and tighter.
And so it's going up, it's rising in elevation
kind of going
too, right?
uphill. And so that just like, I'm sure is just killing the drivers' necks as they're going up. And then there's a midsection with some long straights and a really tight hairpin. And then in the last sector, there's a famous corner called 130R. And if you've seen clips of it, that you might have seen there was a famous clip of Juan Pablo Montoya making a pass around the outside of 130R, but it's a tight enough corner that like the drivers are on the max, but they don't lift. And then I think 2 years ago in 2019, there was a clip of Charles with his rearview mirror that was coming loose, and he was holding onto the mirror.
Oh, he's driving
one-handed.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what? Like, how are you holding on one-handed through that corner? It's a cool track.
I wouldn't know. I drive one-handed all the time. I adjust my rear view. I do all sorts of things while I'm driving. I can eat. I can drive. These guys can look. I know that they're pros and everything, but come on. Everybody said that. I saw the video of it, and I thought, I wonder how difficult that really is. And by the way, he made no adjustments. Like, he's reaching over to that mirror and he's realizing, I can't do anything with
this. But it was just, very
But
brave.
it was while he was going through a couple of turns, too. So it's like, oh, no, he's one-handed, like, going through at least a couple of light curves there. So, let's start. You tell me where you want to start. So, somebody who's going to try to get into going to a race. Like, this week, I found one of our listeners who said, hey, a guy in our office was like, I'm into F1. I didn't know you were, so you're doing like a podcast. I was like, yeah, man. I was like, Dan and I are I'm much more new to the race world than Dan is, and I'm probably more along the lines of this guy who got into it because of the same Netflix show. I think so many people jumped in on after that. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm on year 4, year 5 of acting like I'm the biggest F1 fan on the planet. But he was talking a little bit about how they're planning on going to Vegas. So he's like, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think so too. I think I'm just going to try to figure it out. And then he was like, I said, but Dan went, and I know that every track is different. And I feel like Singapore is like a luxury edition of like traveling to a track. I don't know. Maybe that's totally off. But
no, it's
I think about like the money-making races. That's probably one of them. But if somebody's planning on going, like what things would you try to teach somebody who wants to go to an F1 race?
Yeah, so one of the things that I learned was around like kind of the track viewing experience for the weekend. Because when you go to buy a ticket, one of the first decisions you have to make is like, do I want to sit in the same spot all 3 days? Or do I want, they sell packages where they're sending you around the track. Or you can buy just 1 day or 2 days. There's just like tons of combinations of tickets that you can buy. What we ended up buying was all 3 days in the same place in turn 1. But what we ended up doing is on Friday and Saturday, we walked all around the track and we're watching from different parts, and we only really sat in our seats for the race.
And they let you do that? Like they just kind of go,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine.
So they had like different zones on the track, and our seats got us to, access to all the zones. And I think you could buy less expensive tickets and you just get access to one zone. So we were able to walk around. And so what's cool about a street circuit is you can get really close to the cars. You can get right up against the catch fence. And so we were just kind of walking around. There's lots of crossover bridges too in Singapore. So you can traverse the track pretty easily and get to pretty much any part that you want to see. And so, for FP3, when it was raining and starting to get a little bit drier, we went down into the third sector, and there's kind of like a tight chicane before the last corner, and it was just really cool to get right up there and the spray coming through the catch fence and hitting you. It was
What about the
really
noise?
cool.
Like I just imagine that. You lived in the NASCAR world too for a while,
Yeah.
which we look like we look right now, which is like wearing these. Obviously these aren't like for noise; they're just headphones to listen to each other talk. But I feel like there'd probably be a standard. They're like, hey, you got to wear all these things if you're going to want to be like have normal hearing after. Or is it like, it's actually not nearly as loud as you thought it was going to be?
I think as a fan, it's totally fine without earplugs. I didn't wear earplugs all weekend. Once the cars space out, when they all come through together, it's, pretty loud. But once they space out, it was manageable. So I didn't wear earplugs the whole weekend.
It's not like NASCAR then, because NASCAR is you hear from 40 miles away.
Yeah, NASCAR it shakes your body as they go by, because usually they're in a pack, and there's just louder exhaust. The sound is totally different. The high RPMs just creates like a different tone, and it just sounds awesome. When we walked in for FP1 and we heard the first cars going out on the track from a distance, it just like the adrenaline started to rush, because that sound is just so iconic. And so it was a really cool sound, and I just didn't want to lose any of the quality of it with anything in my ears. But I would say the majority of people weren't wearing ear protection.
What was maybe a thing that you were like, oh no, I'm not going to do that again, or I want to make sure and avoid this next time, or when I do it and we go to Vegas, I'm going to make sure and do this.
Buy swag before you go, because the swag there is crazy expensive.
Okay.
So we went there and we're like, let's go check out the swag tent. And the big old tent, and every team, for sale, all their swag. And this is in Singapore dollars, so you got to like times by 0.7 to get to US. So it's not quite as bad. But $90 to $120 for a hat.
Whoa, like of American dollars.
Yeah, that's Singapore dollars. So,
but you're still talking $75, $80, $90 for a hat.
$300 for a shirt, Singapore dollars.
Listen, the people who are going to races, though,
they know their audience.
Right. They know that, like, either people are, this happens at NFL events, right? Where it's like, well, these guys paid $500 for a ticket. So there's this little part of folks who go, either they have a ton of money and they can go to spend a $500 ticket, or they're spending a $500 ticket, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, so they're just going to spend it on everything,
too.
No,
like, I've been to Augusta, and it was, the swag shop there was, average checkout was $800 is what they were telling me at the cashier. It's like, well, I'm in Augusta. I'm never going to be here again, and all my friends want a hat. So
any other time of the year, you can buy Augusta National stuff for, like, pretty normal, like clothing prices, but they know when they got you that weekend,
people go crazy. So it was a similar dynamic. It's like, we're here, it's crazy hot, we need different material, we need, like, my buddies and I were looking for dry fit anything, because it was just so hot and humid. And so we were going through the swag, and it was like, I don't care what team it is. I'm going with whoever has the best material.
So who was it?
Well, we did all of that, and then we sit back and we're like, am I really going to spend $300 Singapore on this? No, I'm just going to sweat it out. I ended up getting a hat. Another buddy got a shirt.
Ferrari hat, though?
No, I got a Mercedes hat.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Are you, like, starting to turn
I'm
that corner?
trying to, like, embrace, my own, like, consumer preference around Mercedes. It was a really cool-looking hat, too. It was
you're like a Yankees and Mets fan, like,
somehow,
at the same time, like, in that sense where you're like, well, I really love the Yankees because I grew up watching them, but the Mets are kind of my team. You're like, no, I don't understand you at all. Like,
well, there was, like, definite tiers in, like, the how nice the swag looked between the different manufacturers. Like, McLaren and Red Bull had the best looking swag, for sure. You can tell that they've put a lot of effort into it.
It's interesting you said that because every time I go online and I think, I'm going to get something, I see it and then I go, oh, listen, I know you're papaya, and I know that this is, like, these teams are, it's like tell me if I'm wrong, maybe this is mean. I feel like they're designing it for Europeans, right? Where it's like, this is some, like, flashy stuff, but, like, also not really, like, down-to-earth kind of, like, clean designs. I guess we call it clean, right? Where you're like, and I get maybe you have a couple. I would like the swag with a couple of sponsors on there. That's kind of fun. But, like, I want it to look clean. I don't want, like, the stripes on different parts of the shirt and, like, going in a different angle and just being like, I got a Ferrari shirt.
Yeah,
hey,
and that's like the hat that I got was a super clean black on black, very subtle looking hat. But yeah, there's a lot of like, Aston Martin was all just like sponsors everywhere, just too busy, and it just didn't appeal to us as Americans.
I get the Aston Martin racing green, but, like, that's not a color that I, like, wear as a. I'm not going to wear that out to the store, and I'm not going to wear orange either. McLaren has that powder blue, that Gulf, Gulf blue.
I saw a hat in that color, and I took a picture of it. I'll show you. It was such a good looking hat, and I was like, I should buy that hat too.
Yes. Should have brought some souvenirs back, Dan. Come on, man. I would have Venmo'd you 200 Singaporean dollars. You'd have to bring dim sum home too, though, to make it work.
But, like, AlphaTauri had really good looking swag. Mercedes was just meh, and then just Ferrari was the most disappointing to me because it's like one design and it's Ferrari red, and I'm just like, I don't own a lot of red stuff.
No.
And so I just wish that I wish they had that, like, darker, almost like maroon red.
Yeah.
That would have looked really cool in a hat.
They're like the OG Ferrari when they originally raced.
Yeah, So I think that Ferrari can step up their swag game. So that was one thing. Was like I wish I had bought this stuff before I came because it's just really expensive here.
It's already expensive too. If you go to the F1 shop and, like, look at stuff, you're like, oh my god,
the license stuff. Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But what about, like, is there such a thing as concessions? I would assume they'd want to sell you food as well.
Oh yeah.
But what does that, like, look like? What's a Singaporean nacho? Like, what are the hot dogs that are we looking at here?
Yeah, they had a whole mix. It was like one main paddock area with lots of food options, but I mean, it was kind of hamburgers, pizzas, like Malaysian street food. So there was a myriad of options, and we had it the first night and it was okay, and after that we just ate outside of the track.
So like regular stadiums where you're like, okay,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, there wasn't like a cougar tail or anything.
I was going to say, some stadiums have amazing experiences. I mean, I grew up going to Mariners games, and Safeco, which is whatever it is now, T-Mobile Ballpark, like, they made it a point to be like, we're going to have pesto garlic salmon, and we're going to have these, like, truffle, fries and stuff like that. So some places are known for that, but, I was thinking about this too, do you get to walk past the drivers? Like, do you get to high five Yuki Tsunoda or low five Yuki Tsunoda in this case? I don't know what it is. Like, do you get to? I just imagined you guys, like, they're walking by the catch fence, and you guys are like, "Hey, Gasly, where are you going to race next year?" Like, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works.
So. We didn't, like, stake out the entrance to the paddock like, some people do to see them when they come in early. But they did do these meet and greets, which sounds like, I'm going to actually be able to, like, walk up to this person. But more, it's like a big stage, and there's, like, a few hundred people standing outside the stage, and the drivers come up and say a few things. So we saw that. And then what I thought was really cool is the driver parade that they did before. So before the start of the race, after like because this race was delayed about an hour before the race. They had all these old vintage cars out on the track, and for the driver parade, they all got in the vintage cars that were kind of the brand that they drive for.
Yeah.
So the Ferrari guys were going around in old, Ferrari cars. So we got up close to the catch fence, and as they drove by, I'm 20 feet from Lewis Hamilton and making eye contact and giving him a thumbs up, and it was pretty cool. Like, you're actually able to get pretty close to the drivers, and it was interesting to see the different, the different personalities. Like, Lewis was really playing it up to the crowd and giving people thumbs up and everything. Valtteri was just stone faced. And
he's a Finn, man, of course.
And legit, Lewis or Lance Stroll was looking at his phone as he went by. His head was just buried in his phone, and we're all cheering. It was pretty quiet as he went by because he doesn't have a ton of fans. But I was just like, man, you could do yourself more favors if you weren't.
That's why he's looking at the phone.
Buried in your phone.
Listen, this is a kid. He was born with a silver phone in his hand.
Yeah.
So there's something to not having time for you and I at the track. But yeah, I mean, come on, dude. You've got to. I guess that's a guy who's not worried about his seat anyway.
Right.
I would be the biggest freaking fan. I'd be up on the catch fence, hooting and hollering. I'd be all for it. I saw pictures of you guys, by the way, on the. Was it you? No, maybe it was somebody in your group who climbed on the catch fence.
Oh, yeah, I got on the catch fence. Yeah, I'm a little too concerned about my meniscus ACL situation to climb on a catch fence.
Did you
and
have
jump
a
down.
knee situation that you're working out, or you just don't want to have it?
I just don't want to have it. I see too many guys my age with ACLs,
You know what happens?
Busting.
You're a little bit younger than me, but getting the real concern is the Achilles.
Yeah.
That's the old the Turkey Bowl football games.
Yeah,
we've popped a few of those in our neighborhood.
That terrifies
guys
me.
who start to get in their early 40s.
But it was cool because after every evening, end of practice, qualifying or the race, Singapore had concerts going on, and it was Black Eyed Peas, Marshmello, and
they're there.
And Green Day. Yeah,
they're there.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so when the session ends, they open up the gates, and everyone, the fans, can pour out onto the track. But they were using it as a mechanism to just cattle herd people to the stage where the concert's going on, which I thought was kind of smart. And so we were able to walk the track a bunch and take pictures and all that fun stuff and climb on the fence, and they don't really care. And I think that's something that other racing, especially NASCAR, should allow fans to do, because it's just such an added part of the experience to watch the race and then be able to go down and see exactly the tire marks on the rumble strips and whatnot.
Yeah, that's the kind of walking up to it experience. I think that a lot of folks, you want to have that stuff. You want to be able to see those kinds of things.
Yeah, when you rush the field at a college football game, it's fun to get down there and see it all up close.
The first thing I think that I saw from you right after, I was texting you right when the race ended, which was, I don't know what. Well, it wasn't right when the race ended, but pretty close to. No, it was right around there. But I remember texting you and you were like, we're on the track, and and then I saw you post that, because that's the kind of stuff where it's dude, this is a massive. I don't know how long that circuit is, but it's pretty long because it's
it's 5 kilometers, 3 miles.
So it's one of the longer tracks. You're not going to get let the people on the track. This is already streets anyway too. I get not wanting people to go out on Silverstone maybe and digging up a patch of asphalt or something, but this is the streets of Singapore. There is something to, hey, let these guys walk out there. You don't want fans storming the football field all the time,
and tearing it up. There's probably very little you could do to hurt a street circuit.
That's why when I watched it and I was like, they're doing this right, because it looked like you were up close and personal with the track, at the track, all these things. We're kind of watching a video here of the drivers' parade, because that's what I want to see is what cars were the coolest. Is because you've got an old Testarossa. Looks like
the Ferraris were probably the coolest.
I'm trying to think of who would be the most lame. I guess if you're like Honda, you could roll. If you're Red Bull, just has one of those Red Bull Mini Coopers with the can on the back. Maybe they used to drive around for promotions. I don't know what that, but because Red Bull, what's their car? I guess it would just be Honda.
Yeah, they pulled out some random cars too, but and they were having dignitaries or whoever driving them, and I don't know who got the chance. Because it's a literal parade. These
drivers for sure are okay, we know we have to do this. For sure they are not 100% loving the fact that they are are out there. Although guys like Danny Rick probably love this thing.
He was having so much fun when he came by. He was really playing it up to the crowd too.
Well, one, you don't know how long he doesn't know how long he's going to have a seat, right?
Right.
Every one of these races is fun and important for him. I mean,
he's just enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think that it would be massively, weird to just the head and phone thing. You tell me about Lance Stroll. Not like my fandom for him was really high, but like that makes me like not. I mean, it's the same thing. I've definitely as a kid asked people for autographs or like, hey, what's up? Like when they walk by, like NBA players or NFL guys, and when people take that minute, that second, not even a minute, when they take that second to react,
like even like a millisecond. Like I think I locked eyes with Lewis and Sebastian Vettel. And I was just like, I had a moment with this person, and now I'm a fan.
You could have kissed Seb, dude.
I could have just
that close to him.
Yeah, blown a kiss.
But last races for him. He's retiring. Like you got to see him at his last Singapore GP. That's pretty dang cool. So, experience-wise, of other sporting events you've attended, it's very different. But like, where would it be on like, oh man, this is when you consider the price of like the actual event of the 3 days or whatever, all those things, the swag, the experience of like having the drivers right there, whatever, the race itself, the event itself, because sometimes we get bogged down and I go to a lot of events, I go to a lot of sporting events, and the actual game sometimes kind of falls short, or the actual race might fall short. And so where would that rank then? Where would an F1 GP rank on a list of like events that you've gone to that like were just pure enjoyment, pure entertainment? Yeah,
it's a good question. I kind of compare it to the chance I got to go to the Masters one year, and I got to go to a practice day. It wasn't even,
it's early in the week. Yeah.
It was like a Tuesday practice day. But like the whole time I was just in awe of the beauty of the place. Like all of it was just like a sensory experience.
Right. And most people know it's a singular moment you're probably going to be able to have with that. Yeah.
So I would compare it to that. It was just sensory overload the entire time, from just the cars on the track to the just magnificence of the city and just all the people. It was more than just like a sporting event. And then when it came down to the race, like we got lucky and got a pretty entertaining race too. And I can imagine you go to some F1 races and they're pretty dry. But we got a great, interesting, drama-filled race on top of everything else that was already great. So, I mean, top 3 sporting events I've ever been to for sure.
You have to say that because of all the money you had to spend on it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've had to feel justified.
Number one, it is definitely.
But I think you could have a very similar experience going to Vegas. I mean, some people are probably used to Vegas; they've seen it a lot, and Singapore is different.
I hate Vegas. I mean, I'm being quite honest. Like, I go there enough for work that I don't like it.
There's nothing, super unique about it.
I have stayed at every friggin' place down there, and most of the time when you're there for quote unquote work, it's not. And guess what? It's not built for me. Like I don't go out on the town. I'm not hitting the. All the joints.
I think that when those cars go out on those streets, though, it's going to like take on a new life. Just the glitz
That's what I'm saying.
And the buildings and everything. I think F1 will just like accentuate that city in a new way that I think will be a lot of fun.
Anything else from the race? I feel like because I know you made a list. I don't want to skip anything. I'm like trying to think of what things.
One other thing was that we found out that at least in Singapore, and I'm sure they do this other places, that there are sections of the track that aren't like ticketed seats. They're just like these platforms that they build, and it's kind of just like standing room, general admission stuff. So if you buy a general admission without a seat ticket, you can park yourself in one of these spots, and that's what we did for qualifying. Is we went down to the very last corner and parked ourselves literally 2 hours before qualifying. In the very best spot to get that view through the last set of corners. And so if they're offering a general admission ticket and that's like what you can afford, I still think you can have a really great experience and sit in some really cool spots if you're just like kind of willing to, get there early.
I wonder too, like if somebody's planning on something like this, obviously, I mean, are the prices racetrack to racetrack basically the same to be able to get in, or is it like, nah, man, Singapore is different because it is that glitz and glam kind of thing. Monaco is going to be different, Austin feels like it's as vanilla as it gets in terms of like a track kind of out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, even though we blow it up pretty big here stateside, but like, I mean, our passes, if I bought your passes in Singapore and I bought those same exact ones in Austin, would those be like massively different in price?
I don't know if I have a ton of reference on this from price checking a bunch of tracks. I remember looking at Monaco and almost going to Monaco in 2020 and then COVID happened, and those prices were like half of what I paid in Singapore.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, I don't know if just in the last couple of years all F1 tickets have come up to that price, but it was, and I'm happy to share what I paid. So for 3 days in turn one on like the 10th row, which I think was a pretty good seat,
That's
it was like $900 for the whole
3 days.
For the 3 days.
What's like the what's the upper bowl? I guess what would be like.
I think
if
you went
difference?
to there were some of the other ones. I think the starting price was like $500 for like
for a 3-day
for a 3-day package. If you were like sitting in like the bay, there was a huge grandstand that they built around the marina that blew my mind. It was, I mean, they said that the whole entire attendance for the whole weekend was 300,000. And my guess is that one single grandstand along the marina seated 40,000 people.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was a big grandstand.
Was it like pretty decent views, or was it?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, you're really kind of seeing only one section where they go straight, but you're seeing the Marina Bay Sands Hotel,
awesome.
downtown, and then like drone shows and fireworks and everything are right there. But you're not seeing a ton of the track, but they've got the TVs up as well. So, yeah, it was like entry was, if you wanted to do the whole weekend, was like $500, and so I expect that to be about the same price as Las Vegas too. I think you should probably expect $500 to $1,000 if you wanted to do the whole weekend.
We're looking at a photo right now. I don't know if this is older or not, but this seems very Danny Rick. This is probably when they were on the same team with Red Bull, but it's a picture of Danny Rick. It's a meme of him with a giant smiley face on a private jet. And Max he's got the big, the cheeser that Danny Rick has. And then it's got Max Verstappen in the background, like in the dead asleep thing that you never want anybody to see you
mouth
doing.
Open.
This is a
drooling.
Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Remote is in your hands and your kids are putting stuff in your mouth because you look that ridiculous. These guys must be wasted after so much. Like their bodies take on so much and their travel so insane. But I was thinking about this race. Let's get to Tokyo. Let's get to Suzuka. Let's get to Japan. The Japan GP historically it's one that I think when I was reading today, they've taken driver polls and it's always in the top 3 or 4 of these drivers. And a lot of them have it as number 1 because of the level of excitement that it kind of brings. And so I always just want to know right off the bat, like a race like this compared to a street circuit where you had we had some 90-degree turns, stuff that like Sergio does really well on. Obviously won the race. Same thing at Monaco. Like he won that race as well. What does this track set up like? Is it more like Spa? Is it more like, something that we see that's somewhere else on the calendar that's comparable to it?
Yeah, I would say it's probably most similar to Silverstone. So it's a lot of high speed, high G turns. And so it's a tricky combination of wanting to be low downforce for the straights, but you want enough downforce to be able to plant that car to not have to lift going through the corner. And so I expect to see Red Bull, excel like they have most of the year at this track. But it's going to wear the tires a lot like Silverstone does.
Because of the tire drag is going to be high because of the big downforce and the speed.
Yeah.
But it's going to be cool. So that's going to be a problem too because they're trying to figure out how to get the heat in those tires the whole weekend.
Yeah. So like Silverstone's usually like a hot race, and so the heat has usually made it worse for the tire degradation. So maybe that's not as much of an issue here with the cool temperatures in Japan. But I expect tire deg to be a big point of conversation for the weekend. And then people still trying to figure out how Red Bull is getting that low downforce at high speeds. Like somehow they're able to get the car height to squat when they're going down those long stretches, and everyone's trying to figure out, is it aero, is it something mechanical? Like what are they doing to get the car down in the back as when they get up to the high speeds? And so more people are going to be trying to figure that out. So I expect for a good race. I think that if rain comes into the equation, that only increases the variability of the finishing order. So it hurts Max more than it helps, even though Max is really good in the rain. So I think if it's a dry race, Max is probably going to walk away with it.
They said that Red Bull. I was listening to like post race. Some of these team principals are really just like the ones who are maybe thought they were in a fight at one point. Your Totos, your Mattia Binottos, who were like Red Bull just now there's not like, oh, this track works to our favor now. It's like Red Bull has
They're
the
just
advantage.
better everywhere. Yeah.
Which is wild, the thing. And I'm glad that they figured a lot of things out. You think about how long it's taken to figure Mercedes out, right? Mercedes winning 7 constructors championships in a row, or whatever it was, 8 in a row, and Lewis winning the championship 7 times now. It's a while. You don't like. On the one hand, we like dynasties in sports, right? On the other hand, you're like, all right, settle down.
Right.
Like, I don't want it too much. I see you over there. Hey, Yankees, you have 27 world championships. Why don't you share some with everybody else? So
yeah.
In this case, Max wraps up the entire thing with a win in the fastest lap. Like, nothing in the order behind him matters.
Yeah.
Is there a version of him finishing second to, let's say a wild card? Let's say Fernando Alonso brings his old man strength to the track this weekend,
or maybe Checo. Maybe Checo,
and the conditions
momentum.
are weird. And because I was looking at it too, and I was like, I forgot, and certainly Checo hasn't forgotten it, because everyone's like, so are you like racing hard this weekend? And he's like, I'm trying to win. Don't ever ask me that question again. Like, why would you ask that? But he's like still technically, numerically, mathematically in this
in
thing,
the fight still, yeah.
Which is it's a really freaking long shot, but. I mean, these guys still have something to race for, but is there a version of Max finishing somewhere lower in the order, or is it one of those things where – and if it's dry, then he's going to win the whole thing probably. Mm-hmm. But is it more likely that it's going to be pushed off to Austin? I was reading a thing about how his dad's not even going to be at the race this weekend. So I thought,
that's funny.
Maybe he's planning on it. I don't know. I'm not. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. My money would be on the championship not getting wrapped up this weekend. And going on to Austin, and someone other than Max winning, or Max coming in, still a podium, but Charles is right there or in front of him. So I think that we're still going to take the title fight on to another week. But Honda would love for it to get wrapped up this weekend. And, after throwing the sticker.
Okay,
back
help
on the
me
card.
understand this too, because I remember when Honda was like, "Hey man, we're out of Formula One," but like they're not. And they're like this weekend really pumping up the fact that they're not, because last year it was we're out. Honda Power Unit's going to take over, or Red Bull, Power is going to take over from here, and everybody knew like. And Honda was like, we're still helping in development. We're still kind of helping them walk through here. We're still holding their hand on. They're basically using our engines and our engineers still, But then Honda's kind of putting their stamp on it now. Is it just because it's likely that they're going to win the constructors, and so they're going to? I don't know where it lands, because before they were like trying to step away from it. They didn't want the look of, because this is a manufacturer who's like got a different, goal, and their chairman is like, we don't really want that to be part of our what we're trying to do right now. So, but now they are. Yeah, I don't not know who's making the decisions there in management at Honda, but it's like they spent all this time and effort and money to invest into Red Bull for the last few years, and then at the time they get out, then they start winning, and they're going to have two consecutive driver championships, and then like a constructor championship this year. That it's like crazy that they got out of it, and good on, I guess, Red Bull for letting them come back and put the sticker on. I wonder how much it cost Honda to do that. Hey, that's good. That's advantageous, right? I mean, you talk about Red Bull showing up and going, hey, to get the name on the car on a weekend that we could wrap up the championship on your track.
Yeah,
like,
they're in the position of negotiation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're looking at a picture right now of a guy who showed up with one of the placing boards of and it says World Champion 2022. He's showing it to Max. I would hate that. As superstitious as these guys can be.
You don't jinx it.
It's like, dude, I love that you're a fan or whatever, but come on, you can't roll into that. He's like, thanks. Okay, so if it's not Max this weekend, is it then a Ferrari race? I guess we don't really know where even Mercedes is, because they had a pretty decent weekend, but I mean their pace seemed like it was there, and then they just both kind of blew it. Like it just wasn't good racing by those two guys, which is pretty rare for a 7-time world champion. And George, who seems to, I mean, he has done everything right this year, it seems like, with the power unit that he's been given and the car he's been given. Yeah.
I think that Mercedes has speed and can definitely compete for a podium, if not a win, this weekend too.
I don't know what I want, because on the one hand, I like the idea, the romanticism of clinching it in Japan at the Honda Japan Grand Prix, and that's a cool thing. And on the other hand, like I said, I hate that it's like having a sweep in some of these sports where in a playoff series and you go, hey man, like I don't have really a dog in this fight necessarily, but can we at least go 7 games so I can have something to watch, that with something to it. Plus when the world championship is like figured out, I guess I've mostly been involved in my time watching these F1 series. Like it's been relatively close toward the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And so, on the one hand, I'm like, I don't know what it would be like to have 5 races with nothing on the line. And you have to find these storylines of who's going to get 6th in the Constructors Championship. Like to me, I don't really care, but, that's one thing that I struggle still to go, how am I going to stay interested in something like this? And I don't really have a driver either. It's really weird. I don't have a team. I don't have a driver. I just kind of, I don't want the normal front runners to win. That's mostly my thing.
Yeah,
I like chaos.
Yeah, a lot of people that we'd meet at the track were asking us, like, well, who are you cheering for? And I was kind of the same way. Like, I just want a competitive race. And what that means is, I don't want Max to win this weekend because I don't want him to walk away with it. But, I think that it's going to be a great weekend of racing. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it rains a little bit. I hope it doesn't delay the race. We were getting some dinner and had our plan of we're going to be at the track an hour early, et cetera, to get in our seats. And then I just looked out the window and it was just pouring outside. And we saw the news that it had been delayed an hour. So we were just hanging out in the mall food court, which was actually a pretty delicious place to be.
What's up with malls everywhere then?
Yeah,
Explain it to me.
They love their malls over there. It just seems like everywhere you go, there's a mall, and then the mall goes down 3 or 4 stories underground, and they all interconnect, and they connect to the metro, and it's like you can traverse the city through air-conditioned malls, and by the end of the weekend, that's what we figured out. We're going to walk back to our hotel through the malls, and somehow we figured out our way to how to do that because it's just so hot to walk outside even at midnight. And
is it malls like there's a Foot Locker and some little
all the retail you can
kiosks.
Think of, retail is alive and well in Singapore.
Orange Julius and
all the Singapore versions of that. And it was actually kind of funny. There was a photo this weekend that I saw afterwards that when Esteban Ocon, when his car DNF'd and he was sector 2 way out far away from the paddock. He had to take the public transit back to the paddock. And there's photos of him walking through the public transit gates, and he had to actually get on the subway.
I saw that.
In his full gear. And
with his helmet on
and come back because there wasn't to do it over the surface streets was really confusing because you're just trying to walk through buildings and stuff. So
you know what? I love that he was still wearing his helmet. I would have kept the visor down because then people were like, oh, this weirdo went all out.
Yeah.
This guy dressing up like a Halloween outfit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the way we're Now, they were in again, gear is funny because now it matters. Gear, swag, anything.
Yeah.
These drivers, their helmets are a huge deal every freaking race.
It's every race is a new special helmet.
And I kind of hate it, but whatever. Fine. They're like, my artist and collaborator friend made this for me. But we do the same thing, right, with all the American sports here. We're like, give me this kit, give me this set of jerseys.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at I was looking at Alpine and I go, are those blacked out suits? Are they wearing the blackout jerseys? Because I saw just that picture of him and it looked like his fire suit was black. Or maybe it was just that dark
super
blue.
Dark, yeah.
Yeah, so either way I was just like, man, everybody's doing the blackout. Everybody's doing, a weird car, a weird concept, different liveries. I like different liveries. I just don't know. I mean, we've gone insane with all the different jerseys and everything. So, okay, this weekend, Japan GP. We're going to have a review of the race on Sunday night. It'll drop for you either late Sunday night or on Monday. So, Dan, I'm glad you made it back safe, man.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're back, and this is fun to keep doing this. So, it's awesome to get the download too. Just kind of hear what that's all about. I've been to a lot of sporting events, but nothing like you've just described. So, I love it. I'm
looking forward to Vegas. We definitely need to go.
Have to do it. All right. For Dan Jimenez, Alex Kirry, we'll be back again next week. Another edition, or this weekend, for another edition of the Mode Push Podcast, KSL Sports and KSL Podcast. We'll talk to you then.